That fast food place you swear by, the one you've gone to bat for time and time again, might not be as solid as you think. People deep inside the industry are labeling it a zombie brand. Technically still moving, still open for business, but effectively lifeless behind the scenes. And it's far from the only one in that position. There are 15 brands on this list, and honestly, some of the names will catch you completely off guard. There's a very real chance your personal favorite is one of them. Remember when grabbing McDonald's actually felt like a small reward? These days, it feels more like getting shaken down. Back in 2014, a Big Mac combo would set you back about $5.69. Now, in a lot of places, you're staring at prices closer to $9.29. That's not normal inflation. That's getting mugged, fries included. And those fries? People who've been around a while will tell you they used to be unreal. There's a reason for that. Up until 1990, they were cooked in beef tallow, rich, flavorful, and downright addictive. Then the company swapped it out for vegetable oil to save money. Production got cheaper, the taste took a hit. Your bill didn't go down. But here's the part that really burns. In the early 2000s, the beef patties quietly slimmed down from 1.6 ounces to 1.1. So the burger got smaller while the price kept climbing. A textbook move. That dollar menu everyone loved? Long gone. In its place is a so-called value menu where most items now start around $3. Some value. To top it off, a 2023 customer satisfaction survey ranked McDonald's dead last, among major burger chains when it came to taste versus price. The golden arches used to stand for cheap, comforting food you could rely on. Now they signal sit-down restaurant prices for a meal slid to you through a drive-through window. But McDonald's isn't the only fast food giant pulling this kind of stunt. Burger King may actually be doing it even harder. Their old promise was, have it your way. Now it feels more like, have it however we feel like making it. The Whopper alone tells you everything you need to know. In 2005, that flame-grilled classic cost about $2.99. Fast forward to today, and you're paying roughly $7.29 for a sandwich that somehow feels lighter and smaller when you unwrap it. And no, your hands didn't magically get bigger. Here's the real kicker, though. That famous flame-grilled flavor. At a lot of locations, it's basically gone. Instead of grilling fresh patties, many stores now rely on pre-cooked meat that gets reheated on a conveyor system. So those higher prices? You're essentially paying extra for warmed-up patties and electricity. The cracks are showing everywhere. Burger King closed more than 400 locations in 2023 alone. Step into one that's still standing, and you'll often find grimy tables, soda machines that don't work, and restrooms that look like they've been ignored for over a decade. Customer complaints about cold meals and incorrect orders surged by 67% between 2019 and 2023. Even the onion rings aren't what they used to be. The old crispy crunch is gone, replaced with a cheaper batter that chews like a rubber band. And the desperation is hard to miss. Their app is constantly pushing deals and discounts, which is basically an open admission that the regular menu prices don't make sense unless you're using coupons. And if you think that's bad, wait until you hear what went down with Subway's tuna. It's almost laughable if it weren't so concerning. Subway built its entire empire on one clean, simple idea. Fresh, healthier sandwiches made right in front of your eyes. For a long time, that pitch worked. Then things started to unravel fast. That legendary $5 footlong, completely extinct. These days, the exact same sandwich will run you anywhere from $11 to $14. In about 15 years, the price nearly tripled, and your bank account definitely noticed. But honestly, the cost hike isn't even the most troubling part. In 2023, a lawsuit dropped a serious bomb. Independent lab testing on Subway's tuna sandwiches reportedly found zero detectable tuna DNA. None. Subway has pushed back on the claim, but when scientists can't confirm there's fish in your fish sandwich, that's a massive red flag. Even the bread hasn't escaped the chaos. After the company changed flour suppliers in 2018, customers began reporting a strange, chemical-like aftertaste. Not exactly the vibe you want from fresh-baked bread stacked with crisp vegetables. On top of that, employees are now required to follow tighter portion rules, which in plain language means fewer tomatoes, lighter lettuce, and peppers that look like they were measured with a ruler. The sandwiches just look Depressing. The fallout has been brutal. Between 2016 and 2023, Subway closed roughly 5,000 locations across the U.S. 5,000. They went from being the largest restaurant chain in America to slipping into third place, while Starbucks and McDonald's sped right past them. Somewhere along the way, the sandwich artist turned into a sandwich economist, and nobody seems thrilled about that change. Speaking of promises going up in smoke, Wendy's managed to pull a move that customers never saw coming. But before we get to that, quick detour, because a few months ago, I didn't even know what a health ring was. Then my fiance surprised me with one, and honestly, I'm stunned more people aren't using these things. It tracks stress levels, among other metrics, and what really caught me off guard was how clearly it showed the impact of different supplements. Some of them sent my stress score through the roof, while others noticeably calmed things down. I made a few small adjustments based on that data, and no exaggeration, I feel about 10 years younger. I also noticed they're running a limited-time 69% discount right now, though I'm not sure how long it'll stick around. At the moment, it's about $60, which is kind of wild when you compare it to other health rings priced closer to $350, and those often do less. The only reason they can sell it this cheaply is because they cut out middlemen like Amazon and Walmart, who usually jack up prices with hefty margins. When that happens, customers end up paying 3 to 5 times more for the same product. Now, back to Wendy's, because in 2024, they made headlines for all the wrong reasons. They rolled out surge pricing on burgers, basically treating lunch like an Uber ride during a thunderstorm. More people want food? Congrats, your burger now costs more. From a business perspective, sure, it's clever. From a customer standpoint, not even close. And here's the part that really stings. That junior bacon cheeseburger you used to grab for 99 cents all through the 2000s now rings up at $2.79. Same tiny sandwich. Almost triple the price. The brand was built on one core promise: fresh, never frozen beef. Dave Thomas put his own face on the commercials because he believed in it that deeply. If he were around today, he'd probably be furious. A lot of locations now rely on pre-formed patties shipped in from centralized facilities. The whole hand-pressed idea is mostly just nostalgia-driven marketing at this point. Then there's the drive-thru. Back in 2015, the average wait was around 3.5 minutes. Today, it's pushing 7. I've had shorter waits at the DMV, and okay, that's slightly exaggerated, but not by much. And don't even get me started on the Frosty. They've shrunk it twice since 2010. Twice. Somehow, a small now costs $2.49. When those cups were actually bigger, they were going for 99 cents. Even the salads have taken a hit. They arrive pre-cut in bags now, and sometimes they look like they've already given up before you even open the container. Speaking of glowdowns, let's talk about what happened to Taco Bell, because this one hurts. There was a time when Taco Bell was the undisputed champion of cheap food. You could walk in with $5 and walk out with enough tacos to question your life choices. Twice. Those glory days? Completely gone. Take the Taco Supreme, for example. Back in 2000, it cost about 79 cents. Today, that same taco will set you back roughly $3.49. That's a 342% jump, and unless your paycheck magically quadrupled, you definitely felt that increase. And here's where it really starts to sting. Between 2019 and 2023, Taco Bell wiped more than 20 fan-favorite items off the menu. The Mexican pizza? Gone. The enchilada? Erased from history. It almost feels like they went out of their way to remove everything longtime customers actually came for. But somehow, it gets worse. Internal company documents later showed that in 2021, Taco Bell quietly cut beef portions by about 10%. Prices stayed exactly the same, of course. You just got less food. A classic move. And about that beef, Taco Bell openly admits it's only 88% real meat. The rest is a mix of fillers, water, and seasoning, which means you're paying modern prices for taco filling that's been stretched as thin as possible. These days, a basic combo meal can run anywhere from $12 to $15. At that point, you could just walk into an actual Mexican restaurant, sit in a real chair, and have someone refill your chips without judgment. To make matters worse, many Taco Bell locations have removed their dining rooms altogether. So if you enjoy eating indoors like a functioning member of society, well, you're out of luck. And Taco Bell isn't the only brand letting longtime fans down. KFC might actually be committing an even bigger betrayal. The Colonel built that chain on a straightforward promise. Chicken seasoned with 11 herbs and spices, pressure cooked, and made fresh every single day. That was the standard back in 1952, and it meant something. Fast forward to now, and the hearty, juicy pieces your grandparents remember have been replaced with skinny birds wrapped in breading so thin you can practically see through it. The original recipe even specified certain chicken sizes, but today, KFC sources whatever happens to be cheapest from massive industrial farms. Here's the part that really hurts. In 2005, a two-piece meal cost about $3.99. Today, that exact same meal rings up at roughly $10.49. And somehow, there's less chicken on the plate. Former kitchen employees have also spilled some uncomfortable truths. That freshly cooked chicken often sits under heat lamps for hours at many locations. Nothing screams finger-licking good, quite like dried-out soggy meat that's been slowly sweating since lunchtime. And let's talk sides. Those beloved potato wedges? Gone. In 2020, KFC ditched them in favor of secret recipe fries that no one asked for and plenty of people actively complain about. It's like swapping your grandma's homemade pie for something you grabbed at a gas station. Even the mashed potatoes aren't safe. Customers now describe them as powdery and artificial, which suggests they probably don't come anywhere near real potatoes anymore. To top it all off, good luck even finding a KFC in smaller towns. Between 2010 and 2023, the chain quietly shut down around 1,200 locations, leaving a lot of former fans with nothing but memories and regret. But speaking of brands that completely walked away from what made them special, remember when Pizza Hut actually meant something? The red roof? The checkered tablecloths? Thick pan pizzas arriving on a metal stand while your family argued over who got the last breadstick. That whole experience is basically history now. Pizza Hut has shut down about 90% of its sit-down restaurants. 90%. Corporate decided the family dinner vibe just wasn't profitable enough. And here's where it really starts to hurt. The personal pan pizza quietly shrank from 6 inches to 5. That might sound minor until you realize the price jumped from $2.99 to $6.49 at the same time. You're now paying more than twice as much for noticeably less pizza. Honestly, my elementary school lunch deals were a better value. Then there's the cheese. Something clearly changed in 2017 when Pizza Hut switched suppliers. Customers immediately started complaining that it tasted rubbery, like it didn't quite melt right anymore. Okay, maybe melted yoga mat is a little dramatic, but not by much. Delivery hasn't escaped the decline either. In a lot of areas, wait times now stretch past 45 minutes, largely because there are fewer in-house drivers and more reliance on third-party delivery apps that tack on extra fees. And that iconic buffet, the one that made Sunday afternoons feel special? Fewer than 200 locations across the entire country still offer it. Prices have climbed just as fast as the nostalgia. A large pepperoni pizza that cost $9.99 in 2010 now runs about $17.99. At that point, those frozen pizzas at the grocery store start looking surprisingly reasonable. At least Pizza Hut still manages to hang on in most towns. The next chain didn't just change, it straight up walked away from entire communities. Arby's built its entire identity around one bold promise: we have the meats. These days, though, there's noticeably less of them. The classic roast beef sandwich is a perfect example. It used to come stacked with about 3 ounces of meat. Now, you're getting closer to 2.2 ounces. That's almost a third less beef, while the price climbed from $2.89 to $5.59. So you're paying nearly twice as much for a much thinner sandwich. Math was never my strong suit either, but even I can tell that deal doesn't add up. The curly fries didn't escape the downgrade either. Arby's switched suppliers, opting for a cheaper potato variety. The result? Fries that are less crispy and way more soggy. Sure, my doctor says I shouldn't be eating them anyway, but that's not the point. What really gets under my skin is the pricing on their market-fresh sandwiches. They now sit in the $10 to $12 range, which puts them squarely in Panera territory. The difference? Panera gives you real artisan bread and a place you actually want to sit. Arby's hands you your food in a plastic booth that's clearly lived a long, hard life. Internal quality audits uncovered another uncomfortable detail. Many locations only slice their deli meats once per day. If you order later in the afternoon, you're likely eating meat that's been sitting around since morning. On top of all that, Arby's raised prices by 18% between 2022 and 2023 alone. 1 year, 18%. And those iconic 5 for 5 deals everyone loved? Completely gone. Now, even a basic combo can push past $13 without blinking. Arby's isn't the only place where the hype eventually crashed into reality. Remember when Popeyes had people literally throwing hands in parking lots over a chicken sandwich? 2019 was chaos. That sandwich debuted at $3.99, and honestly, back then, it deserved every bit of attention it got. Jump ahead 5 years, and that exact same sandwich now costs about $6.29. That's a 57% price hike, even though the sandwich itself hasn't grown by a single bite. But the price isn't the most painful part. The wait time is brutal. Popeyes has the slowest drive-through of any major fast food chain, averaging around 9.2 minutes. That's not fast food, that's a time commitment. You could finish a podcast intro in that line. And those biscuits, the fluffy, buttery ones that made Popeyes feel special, most locations switched to par-baked frozen versions around 2020. If you've had them before and after, you can absolutely tell the difference. The operational issues just pile on. Customer complaints about missing items and incorrect orders are roughly 40% higher than the industry average. 40%. At that point, ordering feels less like buying lunch and more like rolling the dice. Even the spicy chicken isn't what it used to be. After a supplier change in 2017, they moved to a milder cayenne blend. Less heat, same price. These days, a 3-piece meal will run you about $12.99. For that kind of money, there's a good chance your local chicken spot does it better and gets your order right. Speaking of drive-ins that completely lost their magic, Sonic is a prime example. The brand was built around one unforgettable idea: car hops on roller skates delivering food straight to your window. That slice of nostalgic Americana has quietly disappeared at hundreds of locations. Now, you're just sitting in a standard drive-through line like everywhere else, which raises a fair question. What exactly are you paying premium prices for? The cherry limeade says it all. About 15 years ago, it cost around $1.49. Today, that same drink rings up at $3.99. Longtime fans also swear the flavor has changed, not in a good way. The cherry tastes cheaper, more artificial, less like real fruit, and more like something you'd find in a medicine bottle. From 2021 to 2023 alone, Sonic raised prices by roughly 22%, one of the steepest increases in the entire fast food industry. And no, the food didn't magically improve by 22% to justify it. You already know that. Here's what really hurts. That iconic happy hour promotion, where drinks were half off? Gone. That was the reason people showed up. Half-price slushes made the whole experience feel worth it. Without that, a lot of the charm vanished overnight. Then, there's the food temperature problem. The car hop model means your order often sits longer before it reaches you, and lukewarm tater tots aren't exactly a strong selling point. But the sneakiest downgrade might be the ice cream, or what they now call ice cream. Sonic quietly switched from real ice cream to a frozen dairy dessert for their shakes. It sounds close enough on paper, but it tastes noticeably cheaper, and somehow still costs more. Speaking of frozen desserts that quietly went downhill, Dairy Queen deserves a serious mention. Back in 2010, a medium blizzard cost about $2.99. Today, that same cup will run you roughly $5.79. And here's the extra insult. You're getting fewer candy mix-ins than you used to. Less stuff, higher price. But the real betrayal goes beyond money. That smooth, creamy, soft serve everyone remembers? It's not even considered ice cream anymore. The FDA won't allow Dairy Queen to legally call it that. They switched to something labeled frozen dairy dessert because real ice cream requires pricier ingredients. So now you're paying nearly double for a product that technically can't be what it claims to be. If you were a fan of their hot dogs, sorry, most locations quietly dropped them altogether. Just gone, like the idea of affordable fast food. And the basket meals? That's where things cross into absurd territory. Chicken strip baskets now sit in the $10 to $12 range. That's sit-down restaurant pricing for food passed to you through a drive-through window. Except an actual restaurant at least gives you a plate and free refills. Quality control is a complete gamble, too. One Dairy Queen will load your blizzard with toppings like they care. The next will hand you plain vanilla soft serve with 3 Oreo crumbs floating on top. Same price, totally different experience. Even the dilly bar hasn't been spared. It's been shrunk twice, and the chocolate coating now tastes less like chocolate and more like it came out of a chemistry lab. Now, speaking of glowdowns that really sting, Panera Bread somehow managed to make Fresh Bakery Cafe feel mass-produced and sterile. Panera used to be the go-to spot when you wanted to feel like you were making a healthier choice. Soup in a bread bowl, that warm bakery smell in the air, free Wi-Fi, and those cozy chairs where you could park yourself for hours without feeling rushed. That version of Panera? It's basically gone. Back in 2015, a soup and sandwich combo cost around $8.99. Today, that same pairing will set you back about $16.49. My grandmother would have called that highway robbery, and she wouldn't have been wrong. But the pricing is only part of the problem. Here's where it really goes downhill. Most locations no longer bake bread fresh on site. Instead, the loaves arrive frozen from centralized facilities and are simply finished in-store. So now you're paying artisan-level prices for bread that's essentially reheated. Even the mac and cheese took a hit. Portions shrank by roughly 20%, while prices jumped by about 25%. And those bakery cases that once overflowed with fresh pastries? These days, you're lucky to see 4 or 5 items, most of them pre-made and shipped in. Then there was the charged lemonade fiasco. In 2024, Panera was sued after customers died from dangerously high caffeine levels that weren't properly disclosed. That's not exaggeration. People actually lost their lives. On top of that, many locations have quietly removed the comfortable seating and free Wi-Fi altogether. So at this point, it's a fair question. What exactly are you paying premium prices for anymore? Speaking of prices that feel completely detached from reality, Chipotle is a perfect example. The entire brand was built on one bold promise: fresh ingredients and generous portions. But that promise started unraveling in a very public way. In 2023, social media basically turned into a courtroom. Customers began recording their orders, weighing bowls side by side, and the results were brutal. The exact same chicken bowl could weigh anywhere from 8 ounces to 15 ounces depending on who was holding the spoon. That's an 86% swing for the same menu item at the same price. And that price isn't small. A chicken burrito bowl now averages around $11.50. Back in 2015, it was about $6.95. So you're paying nearly twice as much for a meal that might give you half the food. Former employees didn't help Chipotle's case either. Many have claimed managers pressured staff to skimp. Use smaller scoops, spread the rice thin, go light on protein, and hit strict portion targets or face consequences. The generous portions idea quickly starts to feel like marketing fiction. Then there's the food safety mess. Between 2015 and 2018, Chipotle dealt with E. coli outbreaks, norovirus incidents, and salmonella scares across multiple states. Hundreds of people got sick, and suddenly the whole fresh angle didn't feel nearly as comforting. Customers also picked up on a sneaky pattern. Order in person, and portions are usually decent. Order through the app, and the bowls mysteriously shrink, almost like no one expects you to notice. And let's not forget the guacamole. It now costs an extra $3.25, and what you get often feels less like a serving and more like a polite smear. But if we're talking about paying way too much for way too little, Five Guys takes that concept and cranks it to 11. The whole brand was built on the idea that it wasn't really fast food. Premium burgers, fresh ingredients, and quality that supposedly justified the higher price. That was the pitch anyway. Now let's talk about that extra money. A bacon cheeseburger, regular fries, and a drink will run you somewhere between $21 and $24. That's not an exaggeration. $24 for a meal with no table service, no real plates, and everything handed to you in a paper bag that usually leaks grease onto your car seat. For that kind of cash, you could walk into Applebee's, sit down, have a server take your order, get unlimited refills, and use actual napkins. Remember the free peanuts you used to snack on while waiting? those have quietly disappeared from many locations. That small detail, the one thing that made a 15-minute wait feel charming instead of annoying, is just gone. And those famous fries everyone used to brag about, the ones that supposedly overflowed the bag, employees now say they're instructed to limit the extras. Corporate ran the numbers and decided generosity wasn't cost-effective. The beef story gets even stranger. Five Guys insists their patties are never frozen, but suppliers have confirmed shipments arrive flash-chilled to nearly frozen temperatures. Technically not frozen, but close enough that the distinction feels a bit convenient. In fact, Five Guys is too expensive literally trended on social media in 2023. When your pricing becomes a meme, something is clearly off. And somehow, even Five Guys starts to look reasonable compared to what's coming next. And finally, we end up at Starbucks, the brand that somehow convinced an entire generation to spend $8 on something their parents used to make at home for pocket change. A basic grande latte now costs around $5.75, and that's before anyone customizes it. Add oat milk, an extra espresso shot, a pump of vanilla, and suddenly you're staring down a $9 cup of coffee. Your grandparents would honestly assume you'd lost your grip on reality. Here's what most people never noticed. Back in 2019, Starbucks quietly switched to cheaper coffee bean suppliers. Baristas picked up on it almost immediately. The espresso tastes different now, and not in a good, bold new flavor kind of way. Even the food took a hit. After 2020, the breakfast sandwiches got smaller while prices climbed from about $3.95 to $5.75. More money, less egg. Classic play. But the real insult came with the atmosphere. Starbucks used to be a place to meet friends, read a book, or sit for hours without anyone bothering you. At many urban locations, the comfortable seating is gone. The message is clear. Drink fast, leave faster. And if you're not ordering through the mobile app, good luck. App users breeze past the line while everyone else stands there for 10+ minutes, watching teenagers grab cotton candy frappuccinos ahead of them. So now you're paying $8 or $9 for rushed coffee you don't even get to sit down and enjoy. When you really look at it, the value just isn't there anymore. And that's the uncomfortable truth about fast food and fast coffee in 2024.